Welcome to day 14. Go ahead and take out your Bible. We are in Acts chapter 14, and I'm really excited about today's devotional. We're just going to jump right into it. So go ahead and look there in chapter 14. By the way, happy weekend. Hopefully you're having a great Saturday. But here's where we're at. Paul and Barnabas are on this missionary journey. God is showing up in incredible ways. They're preaching, teaching. We were talking about some of that yesterday. But they're in verse 8. That's where I want us to start. They're in this region of this area of Lystra. I think I'm saying that right. So it says there in verse 8, in Lystra there sat a man who was lame. Not cool lame, but like physically lame. Here's a guy that could not walk. Kind of reminds us a little bit of Acts chapter 3. So here's this guy who was lame. He had been that way from birth and had never walked. Verse 9, he listened to Paul as he was speaking. Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed, and called out, "Stand on your feet." At that, the man jumped up and began to walk. Real quick, if you missed a couple days ago, really important to be asking this interpretive question. I think it's the most important question we can ask as we study the book of Acts, which is what is going on, descriptive or prescriptive? Right here, this is a really important question because there have been plenty of people that have been damaged in the church because they were made to believe that the reason they're not being healed is because they do not have enough faith. And because, I mean, clearly, right here, it says, Paul, looked at this guy, saw that he had faith to be healed, and boom, the guy was healed. So clearly, this is prescriptive, right? I mean, this is very, very prescriptive. If you want to be healed, all you have to do is have enough faith. And so if you're still unhealed, then it's really on you. You don't have enough faith. Now, for many people, that has created so much damage. And I don't and can't fully explain the way that God chooses to work. But what we do know in Acts 14 is that this is descriptive of the acts of God through the servant of God, Paul. And so I think this is really important to see again. It's right here that this is descriptive. This is describing the way that God was working through Paul. And is faith part of the equation? I believe it is. But those of you that are longing and praying and crying out to be healed and you're still not, please don't fall into this damaging trap of believing that it's probably because you don't have enough faith. So I don't want to continue to talk about that any more than I need to, but I think it's really, really important. Prescriptive or descriptive, believe that is descriptive of what God is doing. Look there in verse 11. When the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in the Lycaonian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." I mean, this is crazy what's about to take place. The gods have come down to us in human form. Now, you can do some research on this. There was an event, kind of this legend in the town that had happened way previously of perhaps the gods that came down and they weren't hospitable and it wiped out all the people. So one of my commentaries talked about that. I'm not going to get into it. But here's what they're doing. Verse 12, Barnabas, they called Zeus. And so I don't know if Barnabas was ripped or what, but they're like, he's definitely Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. All right. I missed the one part. Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes because he was the chief speaker. Right. The priest of Zeus, who is the temple, was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates because he and the crowds wanted to offer sacrifices to them. Okay, what's going on is the power of God showed up and worked through Paul and Barnabas to the degree that this guy that was lame all of a sudden is no longer lame. Their response is freaking out. They are now making Paul and Barnabas gods, right? He's Zeus, he's Hermes. This is unbelievable. We're going to start making sacrifices to these guys. Now, what is their response? Now, you don't have to drive very far to see churches named Saint Paul or Saint Peter or all these different saints. And I understand why we make them, or they were made saints, because God used them in incredible ways. I'm not against that fully. but it is something that we have to be careful of. What I find fascinating is in this moment when they're making Paul, they're making him a god, let alone a saint. What is his response? Is he's like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, come on, make some sacrifices, bring some wreaths, start praying to me. Let's do that. What is his response? Here's his response. This is fascinating. This is what he says. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of this, they tore their clothes. This is a sign of deep, no, this cannot be taking place. They tore their clothes and rushed into the city. This sign of blasphemy. They're like, no, this is not good. Verse 15, friends, why are you doing this? And here's the part I want to talk about. We too are only human like you. This is what Paul says. This guy, Paul, wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. God wrote it through him. You can argue had more impact than any human that ever walked the planet besides Jesus. And Paul says, what are you doing? I mean, stop. We too are only human like you. Now, here's what I'm going to get into for the next 2 minutes, then I'll be done. When we turn servants into celebrities, that is a dangerous thing. And that is rampant in not just the Lycaonian church, that is rampant in the American church. We are turning servants into celebrities. And we see right here in the Word, this broke the heart of Paul. And so I want to talk about that for a second. What happens when we turn servants into celebrities? Well, when we do that, we arrive at least a couple conclusions. And the first conclusion is, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. Look at what that celebrity's doing. When's the last time you healed a lame guy, right? I'm clearly not doing enough because I've yet to heal someone like Paul did, so I'm not doing enough. Or I make this other pastor some kind of celebrity. Clearly my church isn't big enough. We are not baptizing enough people. I'm not doing enough. We begin to turn servants into celebrities. That's the first conclusion we perhaps arrive at. And the second is, I could never do that. How many of you say that? When you see God work through someone's life in a powerful way, you arrive at that conclusion. I could never do that. They're like amazing, right? They're like a celebrity. All right. When we arrive at those two conclusions, it matters. And it matters for a lot of reasons, but number one, it matters because you are robbing yourself of kingdom potential. You are. You are robbing yourself of what God could do through you. When we turn servants into celebrities, you're doing that. But even bigger than that and more important than that is you are robbing God of the glory that is due to Him alone. When we begin to glorify servants, we're robbing God of glory that is due to Him and Him alone. Now listen, honor and worship are different. We need to honor those in leadership. We need to honor each other, all made in the image of God. Let's honor, all right? Let's be a community of honor, but let's not worship those that God is using in powerful ways. Let's worship one, and His name is Jesus Christ. The creation has never been the cornerstone. Jesus Christ is the cornerstone. So here's my challenge for you. What does it look like for you to fix your eyes and place your worship in the source and not the servants? What does it look like for us to place our worship and fix our eyes on the source and not the servants? And when God uses you, and He is using you, but when God uses you and people are quickly rushing to you to give you all kinds of praise and credit, may we have the Colossians 1:27 kind of response. It's Christ in me, the hope of glory. Let's not be a celebrity culture. Let's respond the way that Paul did. We too are only human. Stop looking at me and start looking at the one that's actually doing it. And His name is Jesus Christ, and He is the hope of glory. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys here in the very near future. Have a great day.